Good afternoon, Akash sir, Robert sir, HODs, members of the panel, and of course Sohan. It is such an honor and privilege that we get to host the second Path event for this year. And of course, to have you with us, Sohan, it's just such an honor. Thank you for taking time off and being with us today and just sharing from your journey.
Yeah.
Malika ma'am, could you just lead us in prayer, please?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, ma'am.
Loving Father, we want to thank you for this afternoon time. We thank you for bringing us together like this. Thank you for the initiative taken by the management to bring us into this platform, Lord. We need to see, it's such a joy to see our students rise up to the positions where you have placed them. Thank you for their loving response towards the management and the invitation that Sohan has received. We thank you, Father, for all our present students. I pray that this would be a good interaction where they would learn and be able to understand what can lie ahead for the future that they can take up. We thank you for Sohan and for raising him up to the position in which he is today. We enjoyed his schooling. He enjoyed his schooling and we enjoyed teaching him too. We pray, O God, that you continue to lead him and guide him with wisdom and knowledge from above. Bless today's session and may it all be for your glory. We ask all this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Malika ma'am. I'd like to invite Robert sir to just say a few words.
We are so happy that we can launch this initiative of connecting with our Bethany alumni. And, we got this idea actually from one of these companies that came to us in trying to connect with the alumni of Bethany. But then we said, why don't we do it ourselves from the school? And so this idea came up, and then I'm just thankful and grateful to everyone who has taken the initiative. Ramla ma'am is here, Alita, and so many of our other panel members. And basically, we want to also connect with our Bethany alumni, and we are just thankful to technology that we can do this at this point of time, and also not just to connect, but to be able to help our present students identify different careers, be exposed to different careers apart from the usual, careers, the good old careers of being a doctor, being a lawyer. And I'm not saying that these careers are outdated, but I'm saying now they need to also look at different, not everybody can be a doctor, not everybody can be an engineer, not everybody can be an IT person. So when we connect with the alumni who are in different career paths, I think our present students will be benefited to hear from them, to learn from them, and to be able to know different careers that are available to them. And from there, they can take a cue as to and make a decision, because some of them are not even sure of what they want to do after they leave school, and they're going to be in that a world on their own, and they have to make decisions. So I think connecting with the alumni and the experience that the alumni have, and when they share it with our present students, I think it's going to really be beneficial to each one of them. And even a designation like Sohan has is development advocate. I've never even heard of this, designation. So there are so many, career paths that our present students can look at now. And my only prayer and hope is that our present students will make the best use of this initiative that the school has started. So this afternoon here and this morning, I think in Netherlands or Amsterdam, we are so thankful to have Sohan with us to just have a chat with our students, the questions that they would have for him. So back to you, Alita.
Thank you so much, Robert sir. Hoping and praying the same, that this is inspiring for all of our students who are here today, and there's quite a few of them that have logged in today. Students, I would just say come in with an open mind, right? Ask questions and let it irk you and stir up your curiosity more and more, right? As Sohan shares his journey with you today. Before we go into an interesting question and answer session with Sohan, these are questions that you have sent to us students, and Manisha ma'am and I are going to take turns reading your questions out to Sohan and getting Sohan to answer them. But before that, let's just hear about Sohan. I know you're hearing in bits and pieces about Sohan. Manisha is going to introduce Sohan in just a little, in a few words, and let's hear about him. Go ahead, Manisha.
So good afternoon, all of you. Today is our second session of Path, which is turning out to be one of the excellent platforms for the youngsters from Bethany to learn and know more about what's in the career pathways ahead. So towards that today, we have Sohan Maheshwar from the batch 2003. Before we start with the session, just about a quick introduction about Sohan. He works in the Netherlands at Amazon as a senior developer advocate, where he interacts with programmers about their cloud technology implementations. Sohan had earlier worked on Alexa team as well as in 2 startups. As a part of his job, he has given talks at conferences around the world, including India, Malaysia, Israel, Austria, US, Finland, and more. His talks are typically technical, and they're about emerging technologies and how it affects the world around us. So now, outside of the work, Sohan has 2 passions. One is quizzing and sports. Do you know that he represented Bethany in the ESPN sports quiz on TV way back in 2001? And he has won and hosted multiple quizzes at the university and open level. In fact, he's also in the founding team of India Wants to Know. It's India's first panel quiz show. Well, students, if you want, you can check this out on YouTube. Sohan also loves to play sports. He played in the cricket team for Bethany and the football team for his college. He started training to play ultimate frisbee, which is an exciting new sport. After playing at a club level in India, he was picked to play for the national team at the Asian Championships in 2015 and the World Championships in 2016. This would be a huge honor for not only for Sohan, but for all of us from Bethany. And on that note, I hand it over to Elita to take the program forward.
Thanks, Manisha. Thank you. Okay, Sohan, attention back onto you at this point. I'm just going to quickly spotlight. Okay, great. Okay, Sohan, I'm going to read out the questions that some of the students had for you, and you can just answer them. Okay, question 1. What positions and jobs have you shuffled around your career for you to reach this current point in your life?
Yeah. So first off, thanks for having me. Thanks for that wonderful intro. It's so nice to see a lot of familiar faces from back in Bethany, and definitely an honor for me. So I'll give you a bit of background about my post studying life, if you will. So straight out of college, my first role was in TCS. And this was, I got recruited out of college. I'll be honest, I didn't like it too much because I didn't get to explore what I really wanted to do. So from there, I moved on to a couple of startups, right? And I got lucky, I think, because I moved to this company called Tarams Technologies, and we were doing mobile apps just when it was getting popular. And this was in about 2009, 2010. And we were some of the first people to actually build mobile apps back in the day. Worked in a couple of other startups after that. And in Tarams, I was a programmer. Like I programmed and built mobile apps. I figured that my skill set and what I was really interested in doing was a little more than just programming. And I came across this particular role, which is what I'm even doing now, which is a tech evangelist or a tech advocate. Right? So essentially in that role, you need to know programming, you need to know technology really well, but you also need to inspire and teach other people how to use technology or how to, interact with tech. And that really excited me because I liked tech. I liked computers, but I also liked, doing public speaking. I liked writing, and I liked creating videos, for instance. So that's the role I've been in ever since. And I worked in a couple of startups in that role. And then I moved to the Alexa team in Amazon. So there I was inspiring people to build apps for Alexa. And now I moved to the Netherlands, and I'm working in Amazon again, doing the same thing, but trying to get people to build using cloud technologies. So that's what I do.
Yeah, how interesting. Thank you, Sohan, for answering that so well. Question 2. What were your subjects in 12th and what did you pursue after?
Yeah. So a bit of background about me. I'm a batch of 2003, which I realize makes me quite old in this room with all the kids around. But I studied in Bethany for 10 years. So from 1st to 10th in Bethany, lived very close to school. So, it was like my second home. In 11th and 12th, I did PUC. I didn't do ISC. I did PUC, and I did PCME, which is physics, chemistry, math, and electronics. After that, I moved to do my computer science in engineering, and I've continued in the field of computers ever since. Interestingly, computers was one of those things that really caught my fancy, thanks to, again, I think Bethany. In 2001, and this might sound really funny now, but in 2001, our school actually got an internet connection, right? I remember Pankaj sir and Hema ma'am, they took us to the lab and they told us, hey, this is the internet. This is what email is. This is how you send an email. And all of us were like, oh my God, this is like super cool. Of course, now everyone uses the internet for everything, but it really did, like blow our minds back then that you could do all of these things. And I think that's what really got my interest in computers and building stuff tech-wise. I also remember going for summer camp in Bethany. In early morning, I used to go for cricket and football with Peter sir and all the other sports coaches. And then after that, we had web development, building websites, building Flash-based apps, which Pankaj sir used to teach us. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I think that's what really piqued my interest in computers.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Thanks, Sohan. Next question. How did you decide what you wanted to do career-wise? How did you know for sure this is the path you wanted to take?
So I knew that I wanted to do something with computers because I was actually very passionate about it. It was something that both made sense for me because it was something I was totally interested in, and also it made sense from like a job point of view. That let's face it, there are always practicalities when it comes to looking at careers, right? You want to look at job security and if there's a market for it. And at that point of time, at least computers, and even now, of course, was a good choice. So for me, it was a no-brainer, right? That being said, I made a couple of small adjustments to what I was doing during my journey as well, right? So there shouldn't be a pressure to sort of commit to one thing when you're in your 12th and saying, this is what I'm going to do, and not make small changes as the journey goes on. Because remember, this is a journey. So I started off as a programmer, and I realized I wanted to do more than just programming. And that's when I moved to this type of role. So that sort of thing will happen eventually in like your career paths. It's completely okay. I've seen a lot of my friends start from something totally different, move to a different field, and really flourish there, right? Because on the way, you sort of realize and you get a better sense of what it is you want to do and how you want to do it. And it's completely okay to make those shifts and enjoy that journey.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's very important, Sohan. Thank you for highlighting that on our journey there are going to be things that will make us want to shift and move and adjust a little and maneuver, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah, thank you. Next question. Was being a senior developer at a Fortune 10 company your dream?
No, I'll be honest. It wasn't. It wasn't my dream. At least the way I've always looked at life and future and things like that is the sum of all parts, right? I've never wanted to look at, I just want to be defined by the work I do, or I just want to be defined by this one thing that I do. And that's how I've looked at it. You're allowed to look at it in whatever way you want. A lot of people are like, okay, work is super important for me, so that's what I'd like to do. Or some people say, hey, like doing something like on the side, like a hobby or something is super important to me, or family is super important to me. it's really up to you to figure out what that is important to you. And for me, it was the sum of all parts. I wanted to, of course, do well at work, but also make sure that I pursue my other interests. And for me, that was the dream. And luckily, I got a little lucky that I got a chance to work in a company like Amazon, where you get to learn a lot. So that just happened, you know. So
Yeah, lovely. Okay, the next question for you, Sohan, is what is unique about your job and how is it different from just being a developer?
yeah, this is something I can talk a lot about, but it is a fairly unique and it is a very niche role, right? Like just to give you an example, I think Amazon has, I don't know, about 300, 400,000 employees worldwide, but we just have about, I know, about 150 people in this role in the company. It's not the most common role, only because we interact with other technologists and other people interested in technology. So it's a role where the interaction is one to many. So I am speaking to many programmers, I'm speaking to many technologists at once. The difference between my role, which is a tech evangelist or a dev advocate, is I don't do only programming, right? I sort of inspire other people to take programming. I teach them how to do it. And that's the idea. So a lot of tech companies now have products that other programmers and developers use. And it's up to people like me to inspire and make sure that their developer experience is good. So that could be via things like speaking in conferences, speaking in webinars, doing YouTube videos, writing blog posts, creating a podcast, hosting meetups, any of these things, right? You can do it via any of these things.
Yeah.
There is a growing trend in roles like this only because tech and programming is becoming so, ubiquitous now.
Yeah.
So it is a role that that there is a lot of scope for now. Typically, people hire for this role once you're maybe few years into your journey at work, only because it requires some experience. It's very hard to get into this role straight out of college, only because you need to know like the community, you need to know like need to have some work experience, and then it makes sense. But yeah, it's that's what I do.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking having a passion to just teach and want to be around people also is vital to the role that you do, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. You need to be passionate about sharing knowledge. I think that's the fundamental thing. That sharing knowledge could happen on any medium, right? If you like doing like, say, I know, Instagram or TikTok and sharing your knowledge there, it's completely fine. If you prefer writing, that's fine too. If you prefer public speaking or things like this, that is fine as well. But you have to be passionate about sharing knowledge, right? So I'll spend like few days trying to like build something, do something cool. And then I'll be like, oh, wow, this is cool. I need to share this knowledge and find a way that I like, that other people also like, and share my knowledge there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so and you've shared everything that's exciting about your job and what you do, but now we just like to hear the challenges of the role that you play as senior developer advocate. What are some challenges that you experience day to day?
yeah. So if you would have asked me this question pre-pandemic, I would have had a very different answer, and I'll tell you that answer. So in the Alexa team, I worked as an Alexa evangelist, right? And the role was the same. I had to inspire and teach people how to build apps for Alexa, like how you have apps on your phone, you have apps on Alexa. I traveled, I think, like 3 days a week, you know. And just in 2019, for instance, I was at close to 100 events, which is an event every 3 days, including like weekends. And in this particular role, travel and burnout is a huge challenge, only because there are so many conferences happening, and you can't be there at all, but you try and get to as many as you can, which means you're constantly flying. Your eating habits are bad. You're doing all of that, and it is stressful. You're running to catch a flight, and then you're in traffic, and it gets a lot if you do this over a period of time for like a year, a couple of years. So the pandemic happened, and now all of it is sort of moved online, and those challenges have been removed. But it's now replaced with a bunch of new challenges, which is how do you reach people online, especially when there is so much content out there? Or how do you create content, or how do you share your knowledge in a way that people want to consume it? people have enough digital fatigue as is. Everyone's on Zoom calls and whatever, like Hangouts and WhatsApp.
Yeah.
You need to make something that's really good, that's interesting, that's engaging, that makes people want to watch it, right? So that's a new challenge that we have been sort of dealing with in the last year, and which is a good challenge, which pushes you to do something better.
Yeah, to get creative and to really see how you can, work around
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Amazing. Okay. How is it working with Amazon? Were there any other credits that you require to get to the role that you're in right now?
Yeah, working for Amazon is great. So the thing is, it is a very large company, right? And then there are a lot of people working on a lot of products. I think the best thing about working in a company like Amazon or any of these big tech companies for the matter is the fact that you get to learn a lot. You know, there used to be this theory back when I started working that if you work in a very large company, you might not learn as much. But I think that's changed in the last few years. Whether it was true 20 years ago, I don't know. But it's changed in the last few years, only because now even the big companies sort of operate like startups where things are fast moving, things are more agile, people are given more responsibilities and freedom to do something they want. In Amazon, some of my colleagues are like experts in the field. You know, some of them have written books about it, and I get to interact with them on a daily basis. You know, so I feel starstruck just talking to some of them. Just to give you an example, the person who invented the Java programming language works for Amazon right now, and I was on a call with him once. So just getting to interact with such people in the field who have done it all, who have built some of the technology that we actually use on a day-to-day basis is, I think, the most rewarding part of the job.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. And is it also that even though it's a large company, what you do works as one separate unit, and you know your roles and responsibilities, and it just so still it does feel like you're working in a smaller team because you know your roles and what needs to be accomplished, right?
Yes,
With that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. In fact, it's funny that you asked that, Alita. So in Amazon, there is this concept of a two pizza team, which basically means that if two pizzas can't feed an entire team at a meeting, that means the team is too large. And it's just an internal thing. But what that essentially means is the team needs to be small, it needs to be autonomous, and it needs to have its freedom to do something that they think is right. So traditionally, again, 20 years ago, maybe that thinking wasn't there, you know, but because of how fast moving technology is and how companies have changed how they operate, a lot of the big companies work this way as well. And it's really cool because you get the security, you get the opportunity to learn in a big company, but you also get this freedom and autonomous, you know, thinking as well.
Yeah. Amazing, Sohan. That's the first set of questions. I'm going to hand over to Manisha to ask the next set of questions. Thank you so much, Sohan. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the next question, Sohan, is how long do you train before appearing for a championship?
Okay, so I'll give you a bit of background on that as well. So I always played and watched a lot of sports. I still do. I think I have Peter Sir to thank for us. I don't know if he still does this, but he used to make us run many runs around the ground back in the day in the hot sun. So Peter Sir, thank you now. That time we didn't thank you because I think we didn't want to run as much, but now I realize that it really helped. So I played cricket for school. I played football for my college. And I started playing this, again, it's a niche sport called Ultimate Frisbee. It's on a soccer-sized field, it's 7-on-7. A couple of things about the sport: men and women play on the same line. So it's a mixed gender sport, which is awesome. And even at the highest level, it's completely self-refereed, right? So just background. So I started playing and really training with a club in 2009. I got lucky that, again, that the club that I was training with were at that time, and even now, one of the top clubs in India, right? So because you train with other people who are really good, you also get much better very quickly, especially if you dedicate some time to it. And yeah, so I was playing from 2009 till 2015 when there were tryouts, selections for an India team that was going to the Asia Oceanic Championships in Hong Kong. Okay. And of course, I don't do this professionally and I don't do it full time, and no one does because it's very niche. Sure. So we had to figure out how to, you know, train like during the weekends and maybe a couple of days a week in the mornings. And yeah, in 2015, 6 years after I had started playing and training for the sport, I got picked to play for the India team. The following year was the World Championships in London, and I got picked for that team as well. I was supposed to play in 2020 in Australia, but that tournament got cancelled in the pandemic. And now I'm sort of taking it easy with Frisbee. I still play a couple of times a week, but not at the highest level. I do play for a club here in Amsterdam, though. For those interested in sport, do check it out. Once your 12th standard exams and stuff are done, it's a great sport. It's a good way to keep fit, meet new people. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to play as well.
Fantastic. That's really interesting, Sohan. So is this institute, I mean, this training thing in Bangalore? You're saying that this institute is in Bangalore as well, right?
Yes, in fact, it's gotten super popular since I first joined. When in 2009, there were just 2 clubs in Bangalore.
Okay.
At last count, I think there are about 14 or 15 clubs. So just look up Ultimate Frisbee Bangalore. I play for a club called Learning to Fly. That's the name of the club. You can look it up as well. And yeah, there are a whole bunch of other clubs depending on where you live in Bangalore, because we know traffic is bad there. So you don't want to travel across the city to play. But yeah, people of all ages, genders, whatever are welcome. So absolutely go try it out.
Sure, Sohan. Thanks for that. And the next question is a very interesting one, which is, what sports teach you about life?
Okay, yeah, that's I think a very nice question. So I'll be honest. I think sports has given me so much in life, and I know this sounds like a cliche, and a lot of sports people say it, but it absolutely is true. So I just told you that I've been playing sports in school. Honestly, playing team sports has always taught me the value of teamwork. Right. I think with any team, and the more you play a team sport, you realize that as a team, you can be so much stronger than the sum of the individuals, right? And this holds true for things like work. This holds true for things like life and family and all of that as well. So that is, I think, the biggest learning that I've had from sport. Yeah. One of the other things that I've also learned is culture actually matters, right? Like a team culture actually matters, and this is super important. A lot of times we don't even realize why something is doing well or not doing well. And very often that has to do with the culture of the team. And that holds true for things like work, but also for something like Bethany, right? I think Bethany has such a great culture around it. Like the teachers make you feel special. This is a great example. As students, you learn a lot. There is a culture of curiosity, of not being afraid to express yourself, ask questions. And that culture is super important. I've played in a bunch of other teams, and I've seen teams whose, as an individual, everyone was super like talented and fit and athletic, but the team just didn't work because the culture was lacking, right? And I think that is super important. I remember every sports day, it always started with this speech about it's not whether you win or lose, it's about how you play the game. And I think that is so true. It absolutely rings true, and that's something I hold even for this day till now. I also teach people as part of my job, and that's probably one thing I've also learned when it comes to sport about teaching, right? About iterative learning. It's not about throwing 50 concepts to someone at once. It's about teaching them step by step and slowly building that up. And I could really see the improvement in my game, when I had like good teachers. And again, that works for things like school as well. You could really see how you learn like a subject. I still remember some stuff from physics because Malika ma'am taught us this in 10th standard, right? So it showed me the value of good teaching and iterative learning as well.
Absolutely. Great. Very good to hear that, Sohan. So we'll go to the next question, which is, would you recommend studying in India or abroad, Sohan?
Okay. So I'll give you what I did. I studied in Bethany. I did my 11th and 12th in Christ, and I did my engineering in this college called CMRIT in Bangalore. And then I've been working ever since.
Right.
I will say few things here. One is studying abroad does not equal being successful, right? A lot of people can study abroad and still not do well for their own accord. Studying in India, again, does not imply not being successful either. You can totally be like successful and happy if you study in India. I will say though, there are some advantages to studying abroad, especially if you do like your master's, for instance. I think for me, the most important thing is, or you get a bunch of diverse perspectives. You'll really truly see diversity if you go to a foreign country, absorb the culture, meet with people from different cultures and countries. That just gives you so much perspective of how the world works and how, you know, everything around us is. And I think that is super valuable, especially in this day and age.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have also noticed that there are slightly different ways of teaching, especially when it comes to things like engineering, when it comes to teaching in India versus teaching abroad. I find that the methods abroad are slightly more practical oriented, which in most cases I think is probably a little better.
Okay.
So you will be exposed to those new ways of learning, you know, like a new technology or a new subject as well. And of course, you get the added benefit of living in a different country, you know, living alone, getting to travel and see the world and things like that.
Sure. Sure.
I do realize that not everyone gets a chance to study abroad, right? There could be like family constraints, financial constraints, which is absolutely fine, because there is also great growth in India right now, especially with tech and things like that. So if you don't have a chance to study abroad, it's not like it's the end of the world. It's not like you won't be successful, etc. There's absolutely a lot of scope if you study here as well. But if you have the chance to do so, I'd look at it at least, and I'd look at the whole world and not just say the US, only because of these few advantages that it gives you when you study abroad.
Great. Great. Yeah. So that surely helps in expanding your horizons as such, is what you're trying to say, in case that opportunity is there. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Great. Okay. So we'll go to the next question there. How did studying at Bethany, and in particular your computer classes, impact the career path that you chose to follow, Sohan?
Yes, I think I mentioned this before, but it absolutely did. One thing I think the students have to realize is back then, computers and tech wasn't as ubiquitous now. Right? I got my first computer at home when I was in the 8th standard, which is in 2001. And like I had to really convince my dad to buy it. I was like, "Dad, every day like that, please, this thing is really cool. You have to buy one of these things." And he did, bless him. So that's that. I think it was Pankaj sir and Hema ma'am who really instill that sense of curiosity about what computers are, what it can do, how it is the future, etc. And like I said, they showed us it wasn't just this is the syllabus, do this, right? Like internet wasn't part of our syllabus, but I remember Hema ma'am actually bringing us all to a lab saying, hey, today we're not going to do our typical thing. I'm going to show you something cool. This is the internet. This is how it works. This is how I send an email. I remember it so vividly. I remember the contents of the email. Right? Mm-hmm. She actually sent an email to her sister saying, "Hi, it's the kids again," just showing them how email works. And it's so stuck in my memory, just seeing how all of that works. Right? And I remember going for computer class in the summer vacations. Pankaj sir used to teach us Microsoft Front Page. Doesn't exist anymore, but back then it was like a cool software on how we could build a website. And me and my friend, we built a website for Formula One because we were obsessed with it back then. And then we also learned like how to create animations using Adobe Flash. Again, doesn't exist anymore. So, and this made us a little cooler. I know it's not, it doesn't sound very cool now, but back then we were a little cool because we could build a website and we could do these cool animations, and the rest of our class couldn't, and they were still catching up. So I did feel a little cooler compared to my classmates. And yeah, I think this stoked that curiosity about computers, right? And there was that environment of curiosity and in school, and like saying, hey, explore this, it's completely fine. And yeah, that definitely led to a lot of my interest in computers. I got a computer at home, started playing around with it, and I think that's what has led me to my role right now. So yeah, I have Bethany to thank a lot for right now.
Wonderful to hear that, Sohan. That's really nice. I think all these things bring back a lot of nostalgia also of school. Like you said, that email that was written, which was just sent, and you remembering exactly what was written there. That's really nice. So we'll go to the next question, which is, what exactly is an Alexa evangelist?
Okay. Yeah, essentially a tech evangelist is the role that I do, where I'm not actually programming or building something, but I'm inspiring or teaching other people to build something, right? So in Alexa, you can build apps on Alexa, like how you can build a mobile app.
Right.
And my role was to inspire and teach people that, hey, this thing is new. It's going to be big in few years. So here's how you do it. So part of that involves speaking at conferences and just, doing a 30-minute talk on inspiring them to check it out.
Right.
But also doing like an 8-hour hands-on workshop saying, okay, I'm going to teach you how to build this app right now, and spend like 8 hours with people in a classroom, teaching people how to do it. So that's what a tech evangelist typically does. And all the big companies, I know Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, all of them have this tech evangelist roles. And that's what I do, right? It's sometimes called a tech advocate. It's sometimes called a tech evangelist. And essentially what you do is inspire and teach other programmers and builders on how to build things.
Okay.
Manisha, hello Manisha.
Yes,
Akash
sir.
is here.
Yes,
He just wants
Papa.
to say hi to Sohan.
Akash, yeah, Akash sir is here, Sohan.
Hi,
Hello,
Sunil.
sir. Hi, sir.
Sohan, sorry.
Yes.
We didn't know we made you an advocate and an evangelist. Excellent. But thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate that. And whenever you're this side of town, we'd love to say hi and host you. All right?
Absolutely, sir. I will definitely
Sir,
visit
did
school
you
when
pass
I was 2003.
Oh, so I was principal that time, I think.
Yes, you were principal that time. Yeah.
Okay, great. Very, very proud of you. And thank you so much for doing this for us.
Thank you so much, sir. It's my honor and pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Elita.
Thank you, Robert sir. Thank you.
Okay. So we go to the next question, Sohan, which is what other qualities or skills other than academics help you to get to where you are today? What other qualities or skills other than academics help you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think in school, I made sure I wasn't only doing the studies part, right? It was focus. Of course, you are in school to learn about, like science and whatever, math and stuff like that, which of course has to be the focus. But I made sure I did all the extracurricular things I could. For instance, I used to do quizzing a lot in school and be part of all the literary activities as well. I could never do elocution and debate because it scared me to be in public and speak, but although I do it now as part of my work. I did a lot of sports as well. Played cricket, but also made sure sports day I'd take part in everything. No matter how bad I was at something, like I was a scrawny, thin kid, and I was terrible at something like a javelin throw, but I'd still take part because, well, why not? And I think doing all of these things really helped me, and I made sure I put myself out there in school. If there was something like a teacher would say, hey, anyone volunteering to do this thing, I'd be like, yeah, let me just do it and, do the best of my ability. Let's see how it goes. It doesn't matter if I fail or not. It's about what I learn actually doing that. And as part of my job, I do a bunch of these different things. I do public talks, I do live streams and videos like this. I create video content, I mentor some people. And I really feel that a lot of those things that I did have helped me directly, right? Because I explored all of these different options. I'm actually very comfortable doing these different things right now as part of my job. Even post school, I explored a bunch of other things apart from just the job as well. Like, for instance, I wrote for a music publication. There was this music publication in India, and I used to write for them and cover like some music things. I did the quizzing thing, hosting quizzes. So the one thing that you need to know is all of this adds up. And I mean that in a good way, right? You do something like this, you learn something, you fail at it, it's completely fine. It all adds up to something else later, right? Even if it's not like a skill you immediately see or realize, oh, I know this, you will see that it's actually built something in you've imbibed something just by doing it a few times. So yeah, it absolutely added up.
Great, great. So nice to hear that. And we go to the next question there. So the question is, what kind of grades do I need to aim to get in order to be where you are today and be a successful developer?
Look, I think grades are super important, but I also think they are not as important as everyone makes it out to be, right? And I'll go through this. Let's not just take this blanket statement and say I'm not going to study. For instance, the grades that you get in your 12th sort of determine which colleges you can apply to after that, right? So it definitely matters. So back in my day, at least we had the CET or the AIEEE and the IIT, where even like a single percentage in grade can make a huge difference about which course you can get to or which college you can get to. So it absolutely matters. After that, though, in engineering, it doesn't matter as much if you get 80% versus say 75%, right? And if you go to a job interview with 80% and you don't know programming and you've just got the marks, people are not going to hire you. But if you've got a 75 or even a 70% but you know programming really well, or you understand tech really well, people are going to hire you. And that number can change from 75 to maybe even 65 or even 60%, depending on the company. I think it's changing slightly in India, where companies are okay with people not getting as good marks in your engineering or wherever, as long as you can show a willingness to learn, as long as you're curious, and as long as you already have and understand technology. So marks are definitely important, but it's maybe not as important as, or maybe it's not the only important thing, when it comes to getting a job.
Yeah, I guess it's an overall kind of thing is what you're saying, that
yes,
it's
absolutely.
just not about academics. It's also about knowing the skills, having the right mental kind of a framework. And like you said in the last question, that one has an overall interest in everything else, where you learn not just about, even like you said, you participated in Javelin, and that was just not about Javelin as such. It's many other things that one learns in the process. Yeah, great.
Yep.
It's Sohan. And the next question is, how do you manage your job and your other passions like sport?
Yeah, I'll be honest, it wasn't super easy, especially in India. And I'm not saying this in a disparaging way, but only because of practical things like traffic, for instance, where I'd spend like an hour and a half just going to work. And these are very practical things that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
For a good part of the last 10 years, my schedule looked like this, right? Where I'd work Monday to Friday, or sometimes even Saturday if there was a conference. I'd spend at least 2 or 3 of those days waking up at like 5:30 a.m., going for training, going to the gym, at least one of those days in the evening with a training session, or, either doing yoga or hitting the gym, and then reserving a lot of the weekend for things like sports and, doing all of that. It did get a lot at times, especially when work was hectic, or if there was a tournament coming up where we had to really train. And it's super important to also keep some downtime for yourself and not burn yourself out, because I learned that the hard way. I was like, hey, I'm young, I can do all of these things, but 6 months of doing that, you can really tell the stress and all of that gets to you, and you really need some downtime, right?
Absolutely.
So I think the way to look at it is not just have work as the centerpiece of your life. Of course, it's important. Of course, it leads to your livelihood. And of course, we all want to do well at it. But if you're passionate about something, I think you will find a way to, make time for it. And it's about managing your time well. My parents always instilled that time management thing well. So it's about managing your time really well, and, keeping some time aside for things like your passions, and you will find a way. Trust me, if you're passionate about something, you will find a way to do it.
Did you do any courses or study abroad? Does getting an education outside of India put you at an advantage? I think it's similar to the previous question, with the only difference being that, did you do any courses or study abroad? And does educate? I think you've answered that question in a way. Yeah,
I did answer the second half of that question, but I didn't do any courses abroad. To whoever answered this question, I will say though, with a course abroad, there are 2 things you get as an advantage, right? One is the actual learning itself, like what they're teaching. And the other is the interacting with the professors, the other students, getting perspectives, culture, etc. The thing with how the world and the internet is now, the first part, the learning, you can absolutely get sitting in your home right now. The same courses that are in Harvard are actually available for free online. And same goes for Stanford and MIT and Delft and every university in the world, right? Literally every resource that you want from every place in the world is available for free or a very low sum online. So if you're interested in just the learning aspects, hey, by all means, the internet provides you that. So absolutely go for it. If you're interested in the other aspects as well, even now you can get some of those aspects online. joining and enrolling into these courses, which again are free, you get to be in like a Discord group or like an online forum with students from all over the world. And they're typically from smaller countries because they're doing this via the internet. So with the internet, I think you get like a good 70% of what a typical course abroad would have given you at like a fraction of, or at like at zero cost. So I think that's the super nice thing about how education and learning has changed thanks to the internet.
Absolutely. Great. So in line with that, I think someone has, Joshua has asked a question here.
Yes.
It's in line with what you've just answered. So it says, what do you think about online certification courses and do you recommend doing them?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joshua. And I think Joshua has asked me a direct message as well, which I'll answer in a bit. Okay. So online certifications, again, there are two advantages to an online certification. One is the actual learning itself, for sure, right? You get to learn something and you get a certification or some sort of certificate to say that you have learned it, which means that there is a test which you have to pass.
Absolutely, yeah.
Some people say, then this is a second advantage, that having an online certification will get you a job, and that is not true. What it will or it may get you is an interview, right? So showing a certificate saying, hey, I've learned Python or I have learned whatever, will on your resume will help for sure, because then someone's actually looking at it and has said, okay, this person has gone through a test, it's fine. What it won't get you is the actual job. So that it won't actually happen. Okay. Because then you actually have to go through the interview and it's up to you. So a lot of people try and game the system by just making sure they pass the test. But again, it's about the journey and it's about learning during that. So get the online certification, get the most out of it in terms of learning, and it will help you.
Great, great. That's nice. And I think we have come to the end of the questions.
I've got a couple of, just one question. First, Mona ma'am has said hi. So hi, ma'am. Nerd has become a dude. I'm still quite a nerd, ma'am. So, but okay, Joshua has asked, which postgrad course did you do? Where did you study it? Also, can you share your experience when you first went abroad? Great questions, Joshua. So let me answer the first question. I did not do any post-graduation course. I have done a lot of self-learning online, which all of y'all will do when you get to work, but I didn't do any formal courses as post-graduation. So yeah, I didn't study that. So I'll share two experiences of when I first went abroad. So first one was a trip to Malaysia and Singapore, which was a holiday, which I went with my parents in 2011. It did feel nice. That was the first time I stepped out of the country. It does feel nice to look outside of your bubble. I lived my entire life in Koramangala. I went to like Bethany school for 10 years. So that was my like sort of bubble, right? And it's nice to step out, really see the world. In 2014 though, was when I actually started going abroad for work. So I did talks in the US and a couple of Scandinavian countries. And that really changes your perspective of how things work in terms of just systems, infrastructure, culture, and work-related things as well. So again, if you have a chance, I think it's super important, or it's very nice to actually explore these other cultures. Again, with the internet, we have ways to do it, but there's nothing like actually going to a foreign country and exploring the culture. So there you go.
Yeah. Thanks, Sohan. We've overshot quite a bit, but thank you for so graciously answering all of these questions and just enlightening us with your journey. I'm sure it's been inspiring, and I can speak on behalf of all of us, the members, the panel members, the HODs, and the students, of course. Thanks so much, Sohan. Without waiting any further, I'm just going to ask Aruna ma'am to come up and give us the vote of thanks.
Before Aruna comes on, Alita.
Sure, Robert, for sure.
Would Sohan have the last advice to all our students who are listening to you right now? What is your advice to them? What is your takeaway?
Yeah. So honestly, the 10 years that I spent at Bethany were probably some of my happiest. I still talk about it and fondly recall all of it. So try and get the most of that education and that environment that's provided to you via everything, not just the studies part, but the extracurricular, the sports, the culture, all of that. I think in this day and age, it's also nice to try and imbibe as much information as you can, and also be kind to one another. I think that's another thing that Bethany taught us as well. So that's it with how everything in the world is going now. I think it's super important to remember that. And yeah, that's basically my advice for today.
Thanks, Sohan. Thank you. Aruna ma'am, over to you.
Right. Am I audible?
Yeah, perfectly audible.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This was the second path event that we've had, and this one is also turned out to be a very successful meeting. And on behalf of everyone in this panel, I want to thank Akash sir, our director, our principal Robert sir, for spearheading this entire initiative. And Sohan, thank you so much for taking time out to engage with our students today, indirectly though. And you spoke about many valuable things today. For example, the challenges that your role entails, your involvement in sports, how do you manage work and your passion, and you spoke about the sum of all parts and iterative learning. And I'm sure that our students will have a lot to take back from your interaction with them. So thank you, Sohan. I thank Padma ma'am for helping with the tech support today, Elita ma'am and Manisha ma'am facilitating the session today. And members of this panel, big thank you to all of you for consistently working on guiding students through this team. And to all our students, I know this is vacation time, but we are so appreciative of the fact that you are so proactive about your career choices, and you all were here today to just inquire from Sohan, and you were so curious about knowing what were his challenges, how was his growth from education and his career. And even his involvement in sports and other things that he is passionate about. So thank you, everyone. And this was a lovely session. Thank you, one and all, and have a very, very fruitful, Sohan, to you, wish you all the best in all your endeavors. And to everyone else, I wish you a very happy vacation.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an honor and pleasure. And it was so nice to see some of my teachers, and I owe them a lot. So thank you so much again, just getting this opportunity. Yeah, and good luck, everyone.